Test, test. Is it working? It looks like it's working. Sorry it took me so long to come on. I had said that I would come on an hour ago, but I had to go to the orthodontist this morning, get my braces adjusted again, and I didn't get back until an hour ago. And then I had to get something to eat and all that jazz. But enough about me. How are you guys doing? It was mostly for Anna B's because she suggested the 10:30 time. And I hate being late. I apologize. Let me just jump right in and start reading. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All of my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. This series of me expressing my opinion about things in Nobody's Girl is specifically for educational purposes. And I have emailed the publisher and asked for permission to read it, and I haven't heard back. So under the fair use parameters of education and inserting my opinion and switching things up and promoting the sale of the book, because I say buy your own copy. You'll be happy if you do. I'm just going to start right here at chapter 3, called Virginia Lee. And hit your like button. Got my little thumb over here. And share, subscribe, notification, you know the rest. In my earliest memory, when my braces feel so much better, my uncle Speed scoops me into his arms and sits me on the bare back of his favorite horse. I am 3 years old, and it seems as if I am a mile off the ground. I grab a fistful of the horse's mane, steadying myself. I love how it feels up here, but I don't get to stay very long. My mother is worried that I'll fall, and she scolds my father's eldest brother for putting me in danger. My first horseback ride is brief, but it changes me. From then on, I'll be obsessed with animals, particularly horses. To hear my relatives talk, ours is a proud family of athletes, cowboys, and war heroes. Dad always liked to tell the story of how he and his brothers got their names. Their father, Fred, was a radio operator in World War II, but mostly he loved to be up in the islands. He liked to be up in the clouds, airborne, while serving in the 8th Air Force in England. And happy Veterans Day to all of us. I've got a couple of vets in my family. Actually, I've got a niece that's a vet, and then my grandfather who's passed away, and then my father-in-law, also a vet, and then of course my son, active duty, so he'll be a vet someday. Fred was a gunner on a B-17. My grandfather on both sides were are vets, or were vets when they were living. I guess once a vet, always a vet, even after deceased, right? And in 1945, when he was 26, he was awarded a medal for meritorious achievement. For my grandpa Fred, that sealed it. When he came home to California and he and my grandma Daisy started a family, he insisted their sons' names reflect his passions. Speed came first, then Sky, my father, and finally Jet. John Travolta had a kid named Jet. Hello, Annabes. Am I breaking up? That's crazy. Are you at home or are you out and about? I'm wondering if it's from my end or from your end, my dear. Thank you for letting me know. I'm glad your braces are feeling better. Me too. I'm glad that you know, had I just assumed that I was supposed to be in that much pain, I would have remained in it. It's craziness. The first thing I said to the orthodontist was, "Did you miss me?" Because he's seen me 4 times in the last 2 weeks. Well, 5 times now. Ridiculous. He said he did, that he missed me. My grandparents, and how are you doing, Annabise? Is the sound any better? The freezing up. My grandparents had daughters too, but they had normal names, Sandy and Carol. My dad and his siblings grew up in the 1960s, 1600s. Hello. In 1970s in Sacramento, which couldn't have been more different from San Francisco. Man, I am acting like I've got Donnie's dementia, not knowing my words. Damn, there it goes again, keeps buffering. Wow. Maybe I'll turn it on my phone and see if it's buffering for me on my phone. Let's see. Without any volume, of course, so it doesn't send us in that wackadoodle loop. But then without the volume, I might not be able to tell. It's not even going to there it is. Okay. All right. It might be working. Maybe. We'll see. I think it's working. Are you home or are you out and about? Because maybe it's your location, Annabise. Anyway, I'll try to keep my hands down because I think making gestures with my hands tends to make it buffer more. Let's see. Couldn't have been more different from San Francisco, though it's only 100 miles away. Ain't that the truth? While the hippies in Haight-Ashbury dressed in tie-dye and embraced anti-war activism and free love, my dad's neighbors wore Wrangler jeans, held conservative values, and believed in hard work. My uncle Jet, for example, became a square dancer caller at the age of 8, and that's still what he does for a living. For his part, my dad liked to fix things with his hands. Lanky, with an easy smile, my dad rarely went anywhere without his Stinson hat. Her dad is disgusting. I just have to say, I've seen videos of him and he's icky, in my opinion. Probably yours too, Annabise. Probably most people's, if not everyone's. My mom, Lynn, was more of a free spirit. She was born in 1960 to my grandmother, Shelley, and her second husband, a guy I never met. That marriage ended after Mom's younger sister came along 3 years later, at which point Shelley sent both her daughters to live with their maternal grandmother, Dee Dee, in Richmond, Virginia. Also a pretty weird city, in my opinion. A Vassar tennis team alum, my mom's mom was one of the first female tennis pros in the country, and she had no intention of retiring. In the late 1960s, Shelley stayed close to her daughters, serving as head tennis pro at clubs in Virginia Beach and Richmond. But in 1970, Shelley moved 800 miles west to Chicago, where she'd grown up, to manage the Midtown Tennis Club. I'm not sure my mom ever got over being left behind. Oh, how sad. See, I don't remember that part at all. This is why I like reading things more than once. I mean, that's all fascinating to me. Annabise, had an epiphany last night when I was doing my yoga, and I've been dying to share it with my viewers. So I'm thinking that our first lady was literally transported by the man that she's married to now and his best friend. Because what Virginia makes abundantly clear in both of her books is that when the models age out, they get married off and or they become handlers. And I meant, when I said handler, I meant more like a transporting handler, like jizz. But when it came out of my mouth, I was like, oh, like she is, and like Erica was with Charlie. So I think Erica aged out too. She was 31 when she married Charlie. And if that information about her first marriage is accurate, let's see, she would have been roughly 24 when she first got married, a year or two after she won her Miss Arizona. Not the teen one that she competed in 2007, but the 2012 one that she competed in 2011. I can finally hear you now. Oh, I'm so glad. I am so glad. Thank you, Annabise. So I think that little t and little e transported melanoma, as you like to call her, Annabise. And then when she aged out, little t offered her an indecent proposal, sort of like Robert Redford offered Demi Moore in that movie Indecent Proposal, but this was long term, not just a one night stand. But I think I was watching more of Michael Wolff last night. He did an incredible interview at In Depth that I will put a link to in the description. It was so captivating that I don't even remember who was interviewing him, except I do remember that it was one of my favorite content creators. So I'll put the link in the description. It was that guy. It was Wahaji Ali, the one that they call Waj, the one that calls himself Brown Mary from when he substitutes for Mary Trump on her podcast. So last night, Waj Ali interviewed or I think it dropped last night. The interview might have been a day or two earlier. Interviewed Michael Wolff, and it's a great interview, and they go into great detail. But it's the defensiveness with melanoma and her husband against anybody asking about how they met, or knowing about how they met, or knowing how they hooked up, or knowing about the Lolita Express story. That it's that defensiveness that gives them away. And I'm sure a lot of people are way ahead of me and figured this out a long time ago. In fact, I know I've heard people say it, but it didn't really hit me as accurate. It kind of hit me more like a joke, right? But I think that when she aged out, she basically got married off to little T with his little D. And it was a business deal, right? But this is why she filed the $1 billion lawsuit against Michael Wolff. And he's got it, man. He's got it going on. He's even talking about subpoenaing Jizz. And I think that Jizz is going to get Epsteined, especially if she gets a pardon or a commuted sentence. And let's see, and this is why one of the biggest reasons I think why Virginia is deceased, and the timing of Virginia's loss of life was the day before melanoma's 55th birthday. Virginia passed away on April 25th, and Melania turned 55 on April 26th. So very few people know as much as Little E knew, as much as Virginia knew, and as much as Jiz knows. But what do you want to bet that she was pimped out to Prince Andrew? You got to remember too that the Little E and the Little T called themselves, trigger warning, they called themselves the Pussy Patrol for the former prince. So they were constantly on the prowl to scope out his next conquest. So home right now, I'm trying to get my girl in the shower right now. She's going potty. Sorry, too much information. She's so difficult. Oh, I'm sorry, my dear. No, that's fine. If you're comfortable sharing it, I'm comfortable with you posting it in the chat. Okay. So yeah, don't you think I'm right, Anna Bees? I mean, you probably thought it a long time ago. You probably already made those connections. But Melania was the first model that signed on to Model T Industries that Trump started, whatever year he started it, like somewhere around 1997, give or take. What year did Trump start his modeling agency? And Erica worked for the modeling agency, so she knows everything too. That's why he's got to keep her really close. So it was 1999 when it opened. Melania was the first model and maybe the only model. Let me see. It stayed open for 18 years and it shut down in April of 2017. Let me see how many. Wait a second. Was Isabella Rossellini was part of that? I used to like her. Now I don't. Let me see how many models he represented. How many models did Model T agency represent in the 18 years? 17 years. Thinking. It is not publicly known exactly how many models. Okay, so that means one, right? Represented over its entire 18-year run. The boutique agency at its peak maintained a roster of about 150 models at any given time. Sure. So this is really funny because some of these people just let him use their names, because like Jerry Hall is on this list, but she was discovered by Jean-Luc Brunel. We went over that yesterday. But I'll read a quick list. Oh, Paris Hilton, she let her name be used, and Isabella Rossellini, Ali McGraw, Yasmin Leban, Beverly Johnson. I already said Jerry Hall, Carmen Del Orifice. I don't know how you say that name. I'm sure that's not how you say it. While a list of some prominent models is available, the exact total of all models. So, yeah, he probably paid some of those to use their names, right? And I'm sure he felt obligated to sleep with all of them as well, right? Okay, let's keep reading. Let's see what say you, my dear. I agree with you. I saw a video showing her as a mail order bride. They found it on the Wayback Machine. Oh, do you remember what channel? Oh, DIY Drea, you're right on time. Hey, late as always. Just wanted to say, last night you looked good. You looked like an angel with the glowing headphones. You're so cute. They are really funny, and yeah, it's hilarious how I think it's hilarious how different you can look day to day on your videos. But I guess we look that different day to day in real life too, right? Just depending on how we're feeling and the amount of sleep and exercise and all that jazz. She really did look like an angel. Ah, you guys. Well, and I had my hair down today. I have it in a ponytail. Should I take my hair down again to be more angelic? I'll try it. I like that. I like looking like an angel. It probably won't work 2 days in a row, though. I doubt it. It'll just look all crazy. Look at this. Oh, okay. Let me see what it says. I'm just going to go to it. Christina Talk. Thank you. Should I watch the whole thing? Why don't I watch the whole thing? It's a short. Can you guys hear it? You probably can't. Mhm. Okay, I'm gonna go back. So Christina talks tea, and it looks like she was 17 there. So yeah, they would age out basically at 18, 19. Um, but this is why I believe that the information about her existence prior to being about 26 years old in New York City modeling is pretty much non existent. But the Wayback Machine, she found it. But she started modeling when she was 5. Dang it, Nancy. Lovely to see you. Yeah, check out that hyperlink that Anna B's just dropped. That's fascinating. So let's keep on. Where was I? Um, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure my mom ever got over being left behind. Even from afar, Shelley imposed a lot of rules on her daughters. Both my mom and her sister, also named Virginia, were required to keep their bobbed hair short, which my mom hated. Their grandma Dee Dee came from money, meanwhile, and appearances mattered to her. She was hell bent on turning her 2 granddaughters into well mannered Southern belles. But I thought they were living in Sacramento? No? Then Shelley married husband number 3, a ranking tennis player named Bucky Walters Jr., and moved to Florida to join the tennis club of Palm Beach. So Virginia's family might go back with um, the Trump family as well, not just her dad and being an employee there at Mar-a-Lago. At that point, she sent for her daughters, but after they arrived, my mom made clear she wasn't interested in having a stepfather, let alone an older stepbrother. Becky had a son from an earlier marriage. Mom and Shelley argued constantly. My mom had always been headstrong, and she resented this new family, especially since her mom hadn't seemed to care much about family until now. So my mom ran away, hitchhiking all the way to San Francisco. I don't know much about what that trip was like, but I do know she started calling herself a hippie and let her red hair grow long and wild. By the age of 16, she'd gotten married to an army man named Craig, and they soon had a son, Danny. By 17, mom was divorced and sharing an apartment with another single mom. She had her hands full, but somehow she finished high school. Wow. Yeah. Paris Hilton went to one of those juvenile delinquent camps where she was abused, causing horrific PTSD, supposedly. Well, I wonder if Paris Hilton is close to the same age as Virginia. Let's see. Um, that's interesting. Paris Hilton, date of birth and age. Age 44. Yeah, very close in age. She was born in 81. So she's 2 years older, 2.5 years older than Virginia. They might have known each other. Let me see if it says which place she went to. Um, where did Paris Hilton grow up, and where did she go to a juvenile detention facility? She grew up in New York City, Beverly Hills, and California. She was sent to several troubled teen facilities, most notably Provo Canyon School in Provo, Utah, which she has described as a juvenile detention facility. I wonder if she ever went to the one in Florida that Virginia was at. Interesting. I wonder if they crossed paths. I bet they did at some of these parties. I bet they did. Wow. So, um, yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you, dang it, Nancy, for that hot tip. That's the link I sent. Yeah. Oh, it's in that same link. Awesome. It's the thing about Paris Hilton is in there too. I didn't get that far. But yeah, everybody, if you want to take note of that link, that's great. And I'll try to link that up in the description as well. Thanks, you guys. You're awesome. Then, so somehow she finished high school. Then one afternoon, while buying Danny a soft serve cone at Dairy Freeze, Mom met Sky Roberts, a cute auburn-haired boy in a big hat. They were both smitten, or so I've been told. She loved Lynn's. Sky loved Lynn's shiny mane of hair, her freckled skin, and her big toothy smile. Lynn liked how Sky swaggered when he walked and how he wasn't put off by her already having a kid. Later, my dad would grow a beer belly and develop what I've come to think of as the Roberts nose, wide at the base and bulbous at the tip. But back then, he was long and lean with a close cropped beard and mustache. Mom couldn't stay away. From the start, Dad treated Danny as his own. He said he also wanted more children, which tugged at my mom's heart. And maybe she thought they could make a family that was better than the fractured one she'd come from. So in December of 1982, my parents married at St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Elk Grove, just south of Sacramento. 8 months later, they had me, Virginia Lee Roberts. Everyone called me Jenna. Oh, I was calling her Ginny yesterday. Sorry, Jenna. But that's okay. I'm putting my own touch on what I read, right? Maybe I'll call her Ginny just for that purpose. But Jenna. Finally, legend has it that my arrival made my grandma Shelley want to reconcile with my mom, her estranged eldest daughter. In a series of long distance phone calls, she and my mother patched things up, and soon my dad, my mom, Danny, and I were speeding east in a used Winnebago we'd picked up for cheap. The first thing that struck me about Florida was the ocean. I'd never seen one. It's funny that she never seen one since she was living in California, but Sacramento is far from the ocean. It's just the ocean is what most people think of when they think of California. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Right here. I loved its salty smell. We stayed with Grandma Shelley in West Palm Beach at first, not far from the beach, and I soon discovered a lot about her. She wouldn't let us call her grandma for starters, I guess because it signaled her age. We kids were to call her Gamma. What's more, she seemed to wake up with a Bloody Mary in one hand and a cigarette in the other. It's sad because Ginny mentions having a Bloody Mary for breakfast when she was 14. So, modeling after her grandmother. A Bloody Mary in one hand and a cigarette in the other. Gamma always spent peak tanning hours poolside at her tennis club, bronzing her already brown and leathery skin and playing backgammon with friends. She kept a bottle of baby oil in her purse. Remember the days of baby oil? Um, yeah, dang it. Nancy says, wow, Anna, that's so creepy. And those girls look so very young. That's scary. Yes. No, just melanoma. And not to make light of anyone who's suffering skin cancer, but I do think that's a cute nickname for her because she is like metastasized, right? That would be another good name for her. Sometimes I call her Smelania. I don't know where I got that. Anyway, she had other quirks too. A clean freak. Gamma was the kind of woman who kept her furniture covered in plastic and who made me stand in the driveway when I brushed my hair. That to me seems like abusive. It's kind of like telling a kid that they're a filthy animal. She didn't have a nurturing bone in her body, but I admired how she lived life on her own terms. Given Gamma's control issue, Mom never intended for us to stay long under her roof. Soon, my parents found a small 3-bedroom ranch house on a dirt road in Loxahatchee, about 30 minutes away from West Palm Beach. Loxahatchee is prime horse country now, but back then it was well known for its renegade residents, loose land restrictions, and exotic animals. It's probably where the who's the guy whose wife allegedly fed him to their tiger? You guys know what I'm talking about. Um, who's the reality TV star whose wife allegedly fed him to their tiger or lion? Um, Tiger King, Carol Baskin, and Don Lewis. Where in Florida were the Tiger King couple? Um, okay, they were in Tampa. All right. Oh, you know who's from Tampa is Pamela Bondi. She was born and raised there. I'm telling you, this fucking guy episode of Hysteria that I linked up in the description of the video yesterday, I think it's about Pamela Bondi, is so good. And I think they did this fucking guy about Nancy Mace in the last day. Let me see. Um, Hysteria. Real quick. Hysteria. They call themselves Crooked Media. Rupert Murdoch. That was 7 months ago. And no, Pam Bondi is, I think, the last one of that series right now. Um, anyway, I thought I saw something right before I came on that had them. Maybe they're working on one about Nancy Mace. Maybe she's next up to bat. She's gone freaking bonkers. Anyway, still reading. Focus, focus. But it's good to mix it up. That's how I can operate under the terms of fair use, basically. Um, Loxahatchee is prime horse country now, but back then it was known for its renegade residents, loose land restrictions, and exotic animals. Partly surrounded by citrus groves, Loxahatchee edged up against the last remaining section of the northern Everglades, which is like truly wild and dangerous. Um, who was that who would drive around recruiting girls at school with Maxwell, Mrs. T, Mrs. Hilton, or Gloria Vanderbilt? It was Ivana, I believe, which is another reason why she was Epstein. And same with Brunel. See, all of these people knew exactly how Melania was one of their, what do you want to call her, a factory girl or one of their models that they pimped out. I used to model for Gloria Vanderbilt until my dad saw me walk on the stage without a bra under my shirt. That was my last time. Thank God for those protective dads. Yeah, dang it, Nancy. That's wild. Good for him and good for you. Seriously. Um, Living next to something so wild, our new neighbors felt free to keep not only broken down school buses in their yards, but also iguanas, peacocks, alpaca, and emus. Years later, one neighbor would stash the body of an endangered panther in his garage freezer. That was Loxahatchee in the 1980s, untamed and off the grid. Our new house wasn't much, but my parents worked hard to fix it. Up. Mom planted sunflowers and daisies in the front yard. Dad seeded a lawn, built a shed, and raised a barn. And me, in the daytime, I explored the woods that bordered our land. There were two kinds of cypress trees in our parts of Florida, the pond cypress and the bald cypress, neither one of which resembled the tall Italian cypress trees I remember from Sacramento. Um, Cypress or eucalyptus, the ones in Sacramento. These trees grew in areas saturated by water. I remember a neighbor explained that the bald cypress, a wispy breed, got its name because it lost its leaves in winter. But I was more fascinated by how, when it flooded, the trees created specialized root structures. Everyone called them knees that grew out of the submerged ground, through the water, and up into the air, bringing oxygen to the canopy above. These cypresses were survivors. Some of them had been alive for 600 years, and I admired that. I also loved what I could see from the uppermost branches of our tallest slash pine trees, which are the kind that grow on swampy ground. This, okay, I would ascend and hang upside down like a possum. Isn't that cute? Adorable. Laughing at the world flipped on its head. I got so good at climbing that my parents began calling me Peter Pan. I couldn't fly, of course, but I had the fearlessness and confidence of someone who could. A month after I turned 5, Mom put me in kindergarten at Haverhill Baptist Day School. Classes were only a few hours a day and were mostly intended to get kids used to attending school. But I still have the report card, which features a drawing of two smiling children, a boy and a girl, sitting together on the floor, both holding books open in their laps. I remember the delight I felt as I learned to read that fall. That's amazing that she learned how to read when she was 5. No wonder she's so smart. And how amazed I was to learn there was a place called a library where anyone could go to borrow books free of charge. 5 months after I had enrolled at Haverville in February 1989. My little brother, Skyrocket Roberts, was born. So she was about 6 then. She was 5.5. I called him Skydie Bump or just Skydie. When he came home from the hospital, my parents put his crib in my room, so I felt almost as if he were my baby. That's so cute. When he cried at night, I was the one who got up and comforted him. I adored Skydie. And as he grew up, white, blonde, brown eyed, and handsome, good things began to happen. My mom worked briefly as a bank teller after Skydie was born, but she quit after being robbed at gunpoint. I understand now that the robbery must have been terrifying for her, but at the time it seemed like a boon to us kids. We were glad to have her around more. For his part, Dad began to find work doing maintenance and construction. I wonder how quickly that was at Mar-a-Lago because I don't think they ever say when he started working there. So makes me think they're hiding something. If it was when she was that young, because they're just half an hour away. My half brother Danny was a scrappy kid. Even after getting one of his front teeth knocked out, being rambunctious, he always seemed to lean into trouble. But he was my big brother and he looked out for me. More and more, it seemed mom and dad walked around with beer cans in their hands. Still, I was happy and I thought my family was too. In those days, I was buoyed by the knowledge that my mom loved having a daughter. I still have the baby book she made for me, which is so jammed with photos I can barely close it. There's me perched on a chair next to a favorite tabby cat, me barefoot at the beach, shoveling sand into a bucket, me dressed up as Snow White on Halloween. There's a lock of my hair tied with a pink ribbon, and mom wrote monthly entries, each one addressed to me. My special girl, she wrote when my freckles popped out. Just like mom's, she called them angel kisses and insisted they made me prettier. And mom trusted me completely with Skydie. One day, while playing in the sandpit under the treehouse Dad had built for us, Skydie tugged on my t-shirt. Sissy, he said. And when I turned around, he pointed at a snake slithering toward us. I wasn't particularly afraid of reptiles. Oh man, I hate snakes. Um, how can you not love her? She sounds so intelligent, intuitive. It makes me nauseating to think of that the last picture, wondering if her F up ex husband did it. I used to wonder that too until I read the books, and now I don't even believe that he was abusive. I think that that might just be part of the narrative trying to lay the groundwork for her demise. Um, I'm very hesitant to buy into that paradigm that he battered her based on the nature of their relationship. I honestly don't think she would have tolerated it, and I honestly don't think he would have done it. I don't think either of them had it in them with the past that she had already survived. I could be wrong. I could be totally ignorant. I know, but yeah, she was extremely caring, and yeah, I think that's why Jiz and Little E liked her so much, and that's why they liked farming her out to MFs like Randy Andy, because she was like their plum pick. And I bet Smilania was too. One of their top catches, right? One of their top captives, hostages. Let's see. But Melania and Erica don't seem so much like hostages as they seem like uh, agents, right? Assets. That's the word I'm looking for. Assets. Because they were probably planted as hostages, but really they were assets for someone else. That would make sense. As nuts as it sounds, that would make perfect sense. And yeah, all this crap is nuts, isn't it? It's so sad. Why can't people just be free and not evil? At one point, I'd kept a lizard in a shoebox under my bed, filling a bottle cap each night so we had water. But something told me this viper was trouble. I grabbed Skydie and ran for the house, screaming. Mom came out just in time to see the deadly water moccasin slipping into the grass. Later, she said I'd saved Skydie's life. I loved our neighborhood. We lived in the second house on the left on Rackley Road, just down the street from the Rackley family. You might think that since our dirt road was named after them, they'd be sitting pretty on the nicest plot of land. Instead, it seemed they sold off the best parcels around them, keeping the mangiest, muddiest piece for themselves. By the time we moved in, the Rackley clan were what people called hillbillies, rough as guts, with a lot of barking dogs, but no front lawn. Our land had its own small pond with a tiny island in the middle of it. And after my father built a narrow bridge linking it to the nearest stretch of shore, the island was my spot. I spent hours there reading, drawing, and daydreaming about how my life might turn out. One day, while I was lolling about, I spotted an alligator snapping turtle as big as a truck tire, sticking his head out of the water. I'd never seen a turtle that large, so of course I wanted to catch it. Mom said I should ask the Rackleys. They'll know what to do, she said, and they did. One of their boys, there were several, including one set of twins, put a hunk of meat on a hook and tied it to a string with a bell on it. 2 days later, when the bell started ringing, I watched in awe as the Rackleys pulled the bloody turtle out of the pond, its jaws snapping. Later that night, there was a knock at the door, yet another Rackley boy. He said his mom had made some turtle soup if anybody wanted to taste it. I thanked him but declined. I had already decided I wanted to be a vegetarian. Ever since I'd heard that taking care of animals was a job some people got paid to do. So I didn't want to eat the turtle. I was excited to to see the turtle's sharp beak and scaly shell up close. But that's weird because well, maybe she was a vegetarian for some point in her life and then not, because she talks about eating burgers and pepperoni pizza. I love your nicknames, LOL. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen Melania have an organic smile. Remember how in the first term people would say that she looked like she was sucking on a spoon all the time, or sucking on a lemon? Like she always had like the bitchy eyes. I mean, sure, it's an attractive look for modeling. It's sort of like the Zoolander thing with Ben Stiller, right? Too funny. Too freaking funny. Yeah, she's not a happy person. She's never had a real smile. And she's going to be even more unhappy now because she's putting out this movie about herself. I think it comes out in January. And so she wants to write the narrative on what her life was like, but the truth is going to be coming out via Michael Wolff, and it's her own fault for trying to say she was going to sue him for $1 billion. which is funny because it's illegal to sue a journalist for doing their journalism. I so it's just ridiculous. Let me drink a little coffee. We kids never lacked for adventure. We'd build makeshift bike ramps out of boards and cinder blocks that sent us flying, but we somehow managed not to get too hurt. We prided ourselves on being able to handle whatever Loxahatchee dished out. One time, after Dad installed an electric fence on the property, we took turns seeing who could grab it and hold on the longest. OMG. I've heard not a good idea to pee on them either. Kids, right? Got to learn the hard way. Always got to push the limit. Another time, Danny fell through a rotten roof that we were not supposed to be climbing on and broke his arm. If you'd asked, we'd have told you we lived in heaven. Whenever Mom took us to visit her sister's kids in their North Palm Beach housing development, we couldn't believe our cousins had to live in such a boring place. What do you guys do for fun? I'd ask, trying not to reveal how sorry I felt for them. My tomboy ways were about to be interrupted, though, by the realities of starting elementary school. Maybe it was a holdover from her own upbringing, but my mom had very clear ideas about how she wanted her only daughter to appear to the outside world. Suddenly, I was forced to trade my jeans for frilly dresses that I hated almost as much as the brightly colored ribbons Mom insisted on tying into my hair each morning. Still, I loved first grade. My teacher was Mrs. McGirt, who recommended I check out Charlotte's Web. I remember the first time I saw Charlotte's Web in the movie theater in Washington, D.C. when I was 5 years old. I was mesmerized. About a girl named Fern who, like me, yeah, Fern, she was all about justice, right? She'd wake up in the morning and start fighting for justice right as the sun came up every day. Um, a girl named Fern who, like me, lived on a farm. Like Fern, I was an early riser, always eager to get a jump on the day. Like Fern, my family had dogs and goats and chickens, though no pigs like the adorable Wilbur. I loved that book. On the nights Mom tucked me in, I had her read it to me. On the nights when my parents were drunk and I put myself and Skydie to bed, I practiced reading it aloud, especially the end when Charlotte tells Wilbur about the wonderful life he will lead. This lovely world, these precious days. I adored the idea that Wilbur was so dear to Farmer Zuckerman that the little pig would never, ever be harmed. Around this time, Mom made clear that being a girl meant more than dresses and hair ribbons. I had never balked at my chores with animals, feeding them, cleaning their stalls, putting them in their pens at night. I'd spent hours teaching our goat, Cordelius, how to walk on his hind legs. That's adorable, isn't it? Oh no, I hope she doesn't end up like the first wife. Oh, she probably will. Dang it, Nancy. Yeah, melanoma will probably end up exactly like the first wife because again, she knows too much, and she's probably like blackmailing Donnie with it, just like Jiz is blackmailing Donnie. And I think that Jiz is already going to end up like Ivana because she let that freaking birthday letter out, and he's got no forgiveness in his heart for anybody, for anything. No, I think I'm surprised that Jiz is still alive right now. He's just trying to not be too obvious. But yeah, she's leveraging him. Jiz is threatening little T like with that birthday letter and, you know, asking for a pardon. She's playing with fire, man. She'd be smart just to lay low, but she's not smart, obviously, or she wouldn't have done the crap she did. Um, Spent hours teaching her goat how to walk on his hind legs. I want to teach the dog with the bell bottom legs how to walk on her hind legs because she is hilarious. She's like the abominable snowman or the Sasquatch. But suddenly, my mother said I had to help her take care of the people in our family too. My new jobs included setting the table and clearing the table every evening, then helping with the dishes and vacuuming every room in the house once a week. Neither of my brothers had to take a turn, but when I asked why, she said girls needed to learn things that boys didn't. You'll have a husband someday, she said, and you'll need to do this for him. It's funny to think about now because it's not as if my mother was very good at housekeeping. The inside of our house often looked as if a tornado had just torn through, but the message was clear. We were both female, and I was going to shoulder some of her load. My family had its rituals. Every night we'd assemble around our coffee table for dinner, fish sticks, chicken tenders, anything that was on special at the local Pantry Pride. The TV was always on, usually MASH, which I hated, or The Simpsons, which I loved, which is so funny that then she got to meet Matt Groening, right? And he wasn't a creep, except for his gross feet, but at least he wasn't creepy about them. Every morning I packed my lunch and eventually Skidies before school, even though no one showed me how. So I just realized that little E was trying to tempt Matt Groening with Virginia so that he could extort money from him. But it doesn't seem like it worked. Like he just got a foot massage and that was the whole end of it. But that's how he would own people. He'd sick the honeypot on them, right? And somebody like Matt Groening, he's probably a billionaire. How much is Matt Groening worth now? Let's see. How much is Matt Groening worth? Only 600 million. He's not even a billionaire, but he's over halfway there. Man, he should have leveraged like South Park, right? That's crazy. Cray. Um Every morning I packed my lunch and eventually Skidies before school, even though no one showed me how. I'd just smear some grape jelly on white bread and put it in a brown paper bag, no baggie. By lunchtime, my backpack gave off a musty smell, and if something were fermenting inside, as if something were fermenting inside, I envied the kids who brought lunch money for a hot meal. But without even asking, I knew that wasn't an option for me. In our house, what little money there was seemed always to get spent on my dad's whims, his latest pickup truck or construction project, either that or beer. When my dad described he wanted something, though, he went out and got it. When my dad decided he wanted something, he went out and got it. When I was about 6 years old, I stepped off the school bus one day and encountered Dad standing in the road. I've got something to show you, he said, and the grin on his face said it was something good. He turned toward our house with me right behind him, and when we got within sight of the barn, I spotted her, a beautiful black and white paint. Her name is Alice, Dad said, nodding to the horse who hadn't been there that morning. She's all yours. I was stunned. I approached her as Dad told me to, slowly with my hand extended so she could nuzzle it. Looking in her big brown eyes, I saw intelligence. I couldn't believe I had my very own horse. Man, and animal husbandry is so good for kids. That explains a lot of why Virginia was as resilient and skilled and talented as she was, since she didn't get much in the way of the formal schooling. But you learn way more than that taking care of animals, especially farm animals. From that point on, Alice and I were inseparable. I could have changed her name, I guess. Did you know that my great grandfather helped create 4-H in Springfield, Ohio? You know, the land of the eating the cats and the dogs. Let's see. I'm listening, just giving my daughter a shower. I thought you were giving her a bath, Annabise. I'm just kidding. I'm so glad that you can do both. OMG, I just barely got her nickname. You all are too funny. Oh, melanoma. I think it was Annabise that came up with that one, or was it Billy? It was one of you two, I believe. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, she's malignant. She is malignant metastasized melanoma. She's just gross. Like at first, in the first term, I had compassion for her because I figured that she was a victim and that she was being held hostage. But as time has progressed, she is one hell of a witchy woman. And I want to insert here too, Erica loves to dress like a witch. OMG. OMG. I'll put a photo of her in one of her witchy outfits on my community tab. I can't remember if I took it with the laptop or with my phone. Let me look real quick. I think I took it with the laptop though. Do you want to see one of my kitty cats? This is so cute. Can you see? This is our giant 20-pound cat. His name is Mittens because he's got the little white paws. That's like a full-size dog bed, and he's like falling off of it. He's taken over the dog bed, and he needs a bigger one. He's such a love bug. Okay, where was I? From that point on, I couldn't believe I had my very own horse. From that point on, Alice and I were inseparable. I could have changed her name, I guess, but I didn't because it reminded me of Alice in Wonderland, a book I'd adored. My Alice was gentle, patient, and easy to get a saddle on, though usually I rode her bareback. Skydie was jealous. I had to reassure him that Alice would never take his place in my heart. That's so cute. But the truth was that my little brother, then barely a toddler, couldn't expand my world like Alice did. Every day when the final school bell rang, I'd hurry to the bus, counting the minutes until it dropped me off. I had a longer walk home now. The school bus had been rerouted after a pig farmer drowned in the collecting canal at the end of our dirt road. The fourth person in a year whose car had rolled into the canal's swampy water. The county school board didn't want to risk a bus full of kids meeting at the same fate. How ironic that that school bus that allegedly hit her a month before she allegedly unalived herself. So now, instead of delivering me right to the end of Rackley Road, the bus dropped me an eighth of a mile away. I didn't care. I would run all the way home, sling a halter around Alice's neck, and off we'd go. Alice wasn't fast and she wasn't slow. She was perfect because she was mine. I delighted in the way she smelled. especially after a ride, and the way she'd wrap her head around me to hold me close as I brushed her mane. I couldn't wait to do the jobs that kept her happy, mucking her stall, putting fly spray on her. When I taught her to swim in our pond, we'd float and paddle together, just a girl and her horse, enjoying the same cool water. When we headed for the woods, she never startled or bucked. She was sensitive as well as smart. On her back, I felt taller, stronger. I knew that she understood me and I her without words. Alice was my ally, my protector, like Charlotte the spider was for Wilbur the pig. With her, I felt completely safe. I didn't yet know there were reasons to be afraid. And then chapter 4, I'm kind of feeling like I should take a quick bathroom break so I can read for a while. So 1 second, you guys, sorry. All right, I'm back. Thanks for your understanding. Look how terrible my hair looks. I'm trying to look like an angel, remember? Quick, put this back on. Hide the hair. This is why I had it in a ponytail. Okay. But it's good to take a break right at the chapter break so I don't have to remember where I was. Yeah, Annie, I was just going to say the same thing. Talk about squeaky clean, LOL. Squeaky clean? What? I'm lost. Did I miss something? Fill me in, you guys. Are you talking about Melanoma's nickname or somebody else's nickname? Okay. Less Than Nothing, chapter 4. This is page 28. In her novel Black Beauty, which I read and reread as a child, Anna Sewell describes horses like this. We call them dumb animals, and so they are, for they cannot tell us how they feel, but they do not suffer less because they have no words. I've thought a lot about that idea that you can be in pain even if you can't articulate it. When I was small, I loved that Black Beauty was written from the horse's point of view. See, I don't even remember that about Black Beauty. I remember reading it, but I don't remember the book that well. I didn't really connect with it. That's why. It took me inside the horse's mind, describing his memories of his mother, a wise old horse, and what she wished for him, a life built on kindness and freedom. Reading that book, I vowed never to cause suffering when I could help it, just like the story's main character. I wanted to grow up gentle and good, never learning bad ways. When many people, what many people don't know about horses is that despite their size and power, they are vulnerable prey animals. They depend on flight as their ability to outrun predators as their primary means of survival. That requires that they use their well honed intuitions to sense danger in their surroundings. I've described how, from the moment I met my horse, Alice, I felt in sync with her. Little did I know that she and I would soon share even more in common, a reliance on wariness and eventually a need to escape. Um, Thank you, dang it, Nancy. LOL. Are you talking about the melanoma name? Is that it, you guys? Or was it that I uh, something that I missed? Let's see. The first signs of trouble came with a few subtle changes to our family routine. First, Skydie started sleeping in my parents' room, leaving me alone each night in the room the two of us had shared. Then my mom, who up to that point had usually run my bath, washed my hair, and gotten me in my PJs each night, stepped back for some reason, and Dad began doing that. Gross. I mean, that wouldn't be gross by itself. It's gross because of what comes next. Now, once I was ready for bed, Mom would say a quick goodnight, but it was Dad who tucked me in, read me a story, cuddled me at first, and all that felt normal and good. I loved my dad. He'd taught me to ride Alice when I competed in horse shows, which I was learning how to do. He was always my biggest fan. I saw Dad as capable and even invincible. I trusted him. Then during bath time one night, trigger warning, Dad abruptly told me to stand up. We've got to make sure you're extra clean, he said. The command felt weird to me. I stayed submerged, the soap suds hiding my nakedness. I wasn't sure why I felt embarrassed, but I did. Can Mom come in? I asked. No, Mom's busy, Dad said, impatient. He had a washcloth in his hand. I stood up and he began to soap me all over, spending extra time between my legs. Ugh, so sad. That night in my room, Dad touched me in ways nobody had before. He told me I was his special girl, his favorite, and this was his way of giving me extra love. He used his fingers at first, then, days later, his mouth. He called my private parts my TT and his penis his peepee. It wasn't long before he asked if I wanted to touch his genitals. I didn't want to, but he wanted me to. He was my father, so I did. I tried to stop these things from happening. I don't want bedtime stories anymore, I announced one day. I don't want cuddles anymore. I can do bath time myself. I'm a big girl now. And so the bedtime rituals ended, but the abuse didn't. At night in the dark, I'd wait. Dad didn't always come in, but every night I feared he would. The door would open a crack, revealing a strip of light from the hall, and the hinges would creak slightly. I'd always remember that soft squeaking sound. So creepy, so creepy. Then Dad would close the door behind him and slip into my twin bed, fondling me, forcing himself on me. For a while, I tried in the tight. For a while, I tried hiding in the tight space under my box spring, but that didn't work. Get out from under there, he'd say, or I'll take Alice away. I couldn't imagine that, so out I'd crawl. At this point, Mom, once so warm and loving, became cold and remote. at least when it came to me. I was always a pleaser, up early. I'd make my bed, trying to help her manage the mayhem of getting three kids ready for school. Now I tried even harder to make her love me, offering to go grocery shopping with her, anything to not be left alone with dad. But mom seemed unreachable. The whippings with the thorny rose bushes started around this time, and it seemed to me she was drinking more beer. Once I had been her beautiful angel kissed girl, but now she told me a story I'd never heard before. She'd always wondered if I was really her daughter. Huh. Yeah, I remember that from the first time around. In the hospital right after my birth, she told me one of my nurses had briefly given her a different baby girl to breastfeed, but the woman soon rushed back in and took the infant away. Maybe I'd been switched with another child, she said. Maybe I was just a big mistake. I was confused. Why was mom mad at me? Did she know what dad was doing to me? I have a distinct memory of my bedroom door opening slightly one night as my dad molested me. I heard that squeaking sound again. Was that mom? Or did I just desperately want it to be her? I didn't see her face. Could she have seen dad under the covers with me? The door slowly closed again. I began to get painful urinary tract infections. Mom took me to the doctor again and again. The nurses were mystified. After one examination, a doctor told my mother that my hymen had been broken. My mother didn't hesitate. Oh, she rides horses bareback, she explained. That was the end of that. I didn't even know what a hymen was. My infections were so severe at times that I couldn't hold my urine. See, her body was rebelling, and that continued her whole life, right? Mortified, I started tying a sweater around my waist at school, so when I sat down, the sweater would absorb what leaked out. The other kids recognized the smell and where it was coming from, though, and nicknamed me Pea Girl. At the time, at home, mom flew into a rage whenever she found my wet underwear, beating my bottom until it stung. So I tried to hide the soiled clothes, and God forbid the sheets when I wet the bed. They stank, so she'd always find them. But I figured getting a single beating for a pile of dirty underwear was better than getting beat one pair at a time. Um, I hate melanoma and cancer in general. Too much of that in my family. Baking a chocolate banana bread for my boyfriend and his son. Ooh, that sounds delicious, DYI Drea. Cute cat. Yeah, we have three kitties. Mittens and Nala are brother and sister. They're about maybe like 5 years old. And then Lizzie, our oldest, is like 17 probably. She was probably born in 2008. So yeah, she's getting way up there. It's amazing. She's still healthy. Um, let's see. Yeah, we've got three cats, three dogs. Pretty lucky. And three of us humans that still live here full time. Um, around this time, Danny was sent away to a Baptist reform school in Washington State. Dad then changed up his tactics, doing what he wanted to me more, obviously, not just in the middle of the night. If mom was out, he'd molest me in the afternoon, promising me that afterward we'd put on a movie. He loves films best, and make some popcorn and stay up late together. By mixing his sick behavior with cozy bonding, he normalized it, at least partially. I still hated what dad did to me, but I began to bargain with myself. just get the icky part over with so the good parts of life can go on. Another skill that she really used in her coming days. Then something happened that made sure life had no more good parts. Forrest was a friend of my father's. He was tall and muscular with a military bearing, and he had a tattoo on his chest. I knew this because he liked to show off his physique at the pool and beer parties our two families began having together. Suddenly, Forrest, who had his own landscaping business, was around our house a lot. I just wonder if he might have worked at Mar-a-Lago too. My dad encouraged Sky D. I mean, if you have a landscaping business, I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot of money in that area, but that would be one of the best places to get contracts, except that the douchebag never pays his people, right? Allegedly. Um, he was around our house a lot. My dad encouraged Skydy and me to call him Uncle Forrest and told me to befriend his stepdaughter Sheila, which I was happy to do. She was 16, 9 years older than me. So I thought she was the epitome of cool, but she could seem distant sometimes too. I later found out why. One night, mom, dad, and I were on our porch with Forrest, Sheila, and Sheila's mom. I've corresponded with Sheila about this recently, and she remembers this too. We think our little brothers are playing somewhere inside the house when our parents, who were drinking beer as usual, began joking around about how naughty Sheila and I were. Either my dad or Forrest then suggested that they trade us for a night. So gross. I recall Forrest glancing at my father and saying something like, a backward sleepover. Jenna can come sleep at our house and Sheila can sleep here. So gross. I didn't know it then, but at this point, Forrest had been sexually abusing Sheila for 2 years. Since Sheila and I have reconnected, she told me she was never traded to my dad for him to abuse. I wasn't so fortunate. I've never known the exact date I first left with Forrest. I do remember that it was with my father's permission. I wonder if there was money involved too. I remember being in the bathtub. I've always thought it was in Forrest and his wife's home, but Sheila wonders if it may have been in one of the empty vacations homes whose lawns Forrest was paid to tend. Forrest walked into the bathroom. I told him I wanted to bathe myself, but he wouldn't leave. He sat on the toilet next to me and acted as if it were the most natural thing in the world. A grown man scrubbing the naked body of someone else's young daughter. We've got to wash you good. You're a dirty girl, he said. That time, Forrest did things to me that my father had done and other things my father had not. When he put his fingers inside of me, trigger warning, um, like my dad did, Forrest narrated his actions out loud. I think you can take another finger, he said, implying that was a good thing. His chest was shaved and he wanted me to admire its smoothness. Touch my muscles, he commanded. Tell me how big they are. Forrest lay on top of me, crushing me. He tried to kiss me, but I turned my face away. When he put his mouth down there, I remember he held my wrists tightly. He was very strong. I couldn't escape. To this day, I rely on music to make the world make sense. I'll be in the front passenger seat on one of those early morning drives to school. My children buckled in behind me with Robbie at the wheel. My hands are free to plug my iPhone into the sound system and push shuffle. Chances are good that as it clicks through my 2,000 or so songs, it'll land on one from the period during which I began to process how much my dad and Forrest had hurt me. I have a lot of songs from the 1990s and the early 2000s among my favorites. I guess because that's when I leaned on music the hardest. Tracy Chapman will start singing Give Me One Reason. I don't want no one to squeeze me. They might take my life away. Or Matchbox 20 will launch into bright lights. I got a hole in me now. I got a scar I can talk about. Or the thunderclap will sound at the beginning of Garth Brooks' The Thunder Rolls. When that happens, all three kids start screaming. They are born and bred Australians, and while they love a lot of American music, they think my taste is terrible. Oh, Mom, they'll moan, rolling their eyes. You've got to update your tunes. Nonetheless, we all enjoy this ritual. My ancient hit parade, their merciless teasing. So I just laugh and turn up the volume. Then I lose myself a bit, remembering how, as a young girl, I wielded my Walkman like a talisman to ward off evil. As I have become a public person, by which I mean a woman whose story of survival has been told and retold by the media, I have kept much about my childhood private. When I began working with a collaborator on this book, I had never said publicly that my father molested me and then gave me to another man to molest. When asked, I had always been vague, saying only that I was abused by a family friend. Well, that was true as far as it went, but there was so much more awfulness left unsaid. So I don't want to cast any doubt on Virginia's account of things because I think she's being brutally honest. But typically, abuse survivors block a lot of things out. So, like, they might think that something happened once that actually happened 100 times. There's a lot of disassociation. And obviously, the billionaires Playboy Club is very different than Nobody's Girl. One of those reasons is because she had a ghostwriter, but also we remember different things at different times. And so I think there's a lot that she chose to leave out for various reasons, and some that she left out because it's not even accessible to her. So I just been wanting to share that. But like I said, not to cast any doubt on her accuracy and her, you know, being accurate to the best of her ability, basically. I mean, there's also a lot that a victim doesn't know that's going on that they have no clue about. Like, for instance, Forrest and her dad might have, not only Forrest might have paid her dad, but her dad might have also told him how he started abusing her in the bath and that was a good way to start, right? Because that was like a carbon copy of what happened with her dad. Forrest for the first man. Oh, wait, sorry. Forrest was the first man to penetrate me with his penis. Not long afterward, my father did the same. Sometimes what they each did to me was so similar that I suspected they were comparing notes. Other times they liked to spend time with me together. They once insisted on taking me to see the movie Arachnophobia, with a species of South American spiders that is smuggled into the US inside a coffin. I remember they thought it was so funny to take me, a small child, to a horror film about eight-legged insects that breed and kill. I've been terrified of spiders ever since. Sheila, meanwhile, stopped coming to our house altogether. Only while writing this book have I discovered that in 1990 she filed a formal complaint with the Florida Department of Children and Families, alleging that Forrest had sexually abused her. Her mother didn't believe her then, but the state did. In September of that year, she got a restraining order against Forrest and went to live with another relative. From what Sheila and I have pieced together, it seems that at this time Forrest turned his attentions to me. Is that so sad? Then Sheila could bear the feelings of guilt that she caused Virginia to be the target of so much abuse. I'm sinking, aren't I? Melting into the chair. Let's see, where was I? Um, Recently, Sheila told me that we were not the only girls Forrest molested. In 2000, he was convicted of abusing another girl in North Carolina in 1996. He served 14 months in prison and was a registered sex offender for 10 years from 2001 to 2011. Sheila says more girls came forward over the years to accuse him of abuse, but her mom disbelieved them. Sheila's mom stood by Forrest until 2010 when she found pornography on his computer and threw him out for good. I feel so grateful that Sheila and I have found each other again, and I wanted to make sure I didn't drag her into the spotlight. Many survivors have made that decision to remain anonymous, and I respect that choice. But Sheila wanted me to use her real first name here. I have had to be silent for so long, she wrote in an email. This is me, and I'm not afraid to be me. I didn't do anything wrong to be ashamed of. I don't want to hide from the truth. I love Sheila's self confidence, and today I am inspired by it. But as a child, I had no such inspirations. It's hard to believe that there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. The Red Hot Chili Peppers sang from the cheap transistor radio I'd been keeping next to my bed. Their lyrics seemed meant for me. And that song, Under the Bridge, is actually about heroin addiction. That's like one of their biggest hits, one of their slow songs. My favorite slow song of theirs is I Could Have Lied. I actually sang it on my YouTube channel a couple of years ago. It's probably one of the very first songs I ever posted of me singing a cappella. It's a little embarrassing, but that's okay. I love that song. I could probably belt out the lyrics right now, but it always takes me a second to remember them. Let's stay focused. I turned to Alice for help. I was trying to hang on to the feeling that I was part of a family and that I belonged, not if not to my parents or entirely to myself, then maybe to my horse or to our groves of slash pines, to the island in the middle of our pond. But one day that feeling of belonging was fading away. Day by day, that feeling of belonging was fading away. Um, some nights Alice and I would stay out long after sunset, missing dinner and whatever came after it. I got in trouble with mom, but I didn't care. I felt she was willfully ignoring what was right in front of her face. Her outgoing tomboy had become withdrawn. Her straight A student had begun cutting classes. Her Peter Pan wasn't as confident anymore. That's what happens when a girl is preyed upon. Mom had to know that something was up, but she didn't ask me what, and she didn't intervene. More than once, she'd even applied I was trying to steal her husband from her. Kind of typical from stories that I've heard. A lot of moms go into denial and don't believe their kids and accuse them of those types of things. Um, let's see. One night I was hiding under the kitchen table to avoid bath time with Dad. Mom got a broom and jabbed me with it until I came out. Look what you're making me do, she yelled, as if what was happening were something I'd set in motion. My response, defiance. I didn't want her husband or his nasty friend Forrest, so what if I missed dinner every night? Throwing food away was nothing compared to throwing a daughter away, and that's what I believed she was doing. Not surprisingly, I guess, during this period, I clung to even the tiniest expressions of affections, even disturbing ones. While sexually abusing me, for example, my father would often ask me questions about what his actions were causing me to feel. He was fascinated by my body's reactions, and sometimes what he did felt good, sort of, though any pleasure I felt was mixed with disgust. I didn't know what an orgasm was, but I knew I didn't want to encourage him. Still, sometimes my body betraying me, shivering under his touch, that's when my father would say he was proud of me. This is why we do this, he'd say. This is why I give you all this extra love. A part of me relished feeling special, especially since my mother had labeled me good for nothing. But when Dad would compare me to Mom, saying, "You're my star, I don't even do this with your mother," I felt sick to my stomach. I guess some instinct for self preservation made me try to claim my body was my own because I started to experiment with boys. My best friend Kyle lived on the same side of Rackley Road as us with his dad, JD, who I'm pretty sure was using Kyle as his punching bag, and his mom, who everyone called Chicken. One day when we were maybe 8 or 9 years old, man, she's still only 8 or 9 years old. Crap. So all this was happening to her when she was like 7 and 8. Is when I mean, I know it started when she was 7, but I didn't know that it got so advanced so quickly. Gross. Kyle showed me a Playboy magazine he'd found in his dad's closet, and we took our clothes off. Then shyly started to kiss and gently touch each other. When I think back on this behavior, I'm struck by the pure innocence of it. We were children. My chest at that point was as flat as Kyle's, which is why we were both equally wowed by the breasts we saw in the pilfered Playboy. Guided more by curiosity than anything approximating lust, we weren't sure what we were doing, but we knew that it felt good. At first, I was the leader, mimicking things Dad and Forrest did to me, and Kyle was bewildered. But my friend was inquisitive too, and soon we were playing this game every day. Then my mother caught us. She went nuts, banishing Kyle from our house and telling me I was a bad, dirty girl. Kyle and I weren't allowed to see each other for a long time. We were even forbidden from talking across the fence that separated our properties. That's when I got angry. Before this, I'd questioned the ways my life was changing, but I was confused about who to blame. Now I chose to blame my mother. How can she say what I'm doing with Kyle is bad when Dad and Forrest do things to me that are so much worse? I asked myself. In Charlotte's Web, the lamb tells Wilbur that pigs mean less than nothing to her. Wilbur is outraged and argues there is no such thing. Nothing is absolutely the limit of nothingness, he protests. It's the lowest you can go. If there were something that was less than nothing, then nothing would not be nothing. It would be something, even though it's just a very little bit of something. Every night as I lay in my bed, dreading the now familiar creak of the door, I tried to remember a time when I'd been more than nothing. I longed to be worth something again. Um, as I was reading that last paragraph, it made me think of the savings on the prescription medications being down like 500% and 1,000% and 1,500%. You know, the absolute limit of nothingness. I love Under the Bridge. Yeah, there's the um Sublime song Santeria sounds a lot like Under the Bridge at the beginning. It always takes me a minute listening to just figure out which one it is, whether it's Santeria or Under the Bridge. I actually like that song Santeria by Sublime more than Under the Bridge. Um, like I said, I Could Have Lied is probably my favoriteest Red Hot Chili Pepper song. And so Under the Bridge is great. It just got so overplayed. And it's got such a sad story behind it. A lot of people don't realize that it's about shooting up heroin in downtown Los Angeles under the bridge. It's about relapsing, actually. Um, so Vinceramos. There are moments when I could glimpse the mom I used to know. I remembered one weekend, I was probably 9 or 10 years old. I'd been invited to a sleepover party by a girl I didn't know very well. At this point, I didn't have any close friends. I had walled myself off from kids my age because I no longer felt I was like them. But a sleepover meant one less night at home, so I went. Immediately, I regretted it. The girls were cliquish. I didn't fit in. So when I got the chance, I stepped outside of our host's home and headed for the barn. It was getting dark, but I figured I could sleep out there. Inside the barn, I found myself face to face with a horse that was locked in its stall. A bonus, I thought. I wasn't alone, but my eyes adjusted to the dim light. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw that the horse was having trouble moving. Peering into the stall, I saw the animal was standing in several feet of its own excrement, a captive left to drown in its own shit. Gross. I may not have been able to save myself, but there was no way I was leaving this horse behind. I marched straight into the kitchen and called my mom. Mom, you need to bring the trailer, I told her when she picked up. You need to do it right now. And you know what? She believed me. It wasn't long before Mom pulled our horse trailer into the driveway. I'll never forget how she squared off with my sleepover hostess's parents, telling them we were taking their horse, and if they put up a fight, then she'd call the authorities. We packed up the poor animal who'd we'd soon name Baloo after the bear in the Jungle Book. Very cute. I just called her Bluey because she had one brown eye and one blue eye, and drove her home. In that moment, I felt proud of myself and my mom. We'd banded together and done something good. But as the days went by, that feeling turned on itself. Why was mom willing to fight for an abused animal, but not for me? Why did she hear my cry for help when I called about a horse, but didn't see my own suffering when it was right under her nose? Um, yeah, they are not down. They are not down. Or were you talking about the two songs that were so similar? Or talking about the book Annabees? Um, I'm thinking maybe you're doing voice to text and that isn't what you meant to type, because it says, yes, they are not down. Um, let's see. You don't have to explain yourself, but if you want to. There was one woman in my life, though, who didn't make me feel like an afterthought. I'd met Ruth Menor in 1989 when she and her husband and kids became our back gate neighbors. Even though her son and daughter were a few years younger than me, we three, and later Skydie too, had played together off and on almost as long as I'd been in Loxahatchee. Soon I found out that Ruth ran Viseramos Therapeutic Riding Center, which she'd founded a year before I was born. As a young woman, Ruth had had a dream of using horses to help change the lives of handicapped and disabled kids. She was determined to create a place that used horses to heal. Nothing like that existed in the area, so she opened her own center and chose a name inspired by the Spanish word "we will overcome." That's the Venceramos. She started off with one client and one horse and began growing Venceramos on a leased plot of land. A few years later, Ruth's nonprofit needed a permanent home, and she managed to scrape together the money to buy a 15-acre parcel a half a mile from my family's land. The place was pretty broken down when she bought it, but I didn't care. Ruth introduced me to Spring, her quarter house, and to Malarkey, an Arabian, who she often let us ride all the way home to Rackley Road. Ruth called Malarkey her heart horse because of their strong connection. Sometimes when Malarkey was visiting Ruth's yard, Ruth would open up a sliding glass door and Malarkey would walk over and stick her head in the house. It makes me think of like Mr. Ed. Ruth joked that Malarkey was watching cartoons with us kids, and I believed her. But it was a rescue horse named Millie that captured my heart. Millie was just 3 years old, but she'd already been terribly abused. When Ruth adopted her, she had cuts on her legs that went all the way down to the bone. Oh, that's gross. I'm going to have to get up in a minute to let the dogs in. They're out back and they'll probably start barking and bugging the neighbors. I can't hear them though with the headphones on if they already are. It's pretty cold out too. I shouldn't keep them out there too long. But let me see if I can get to the end. Yeah, just in a couple of pages. I'm at the end of a chapter and then I'll let them in. Let's see. Millie was just 3 years old, but she'd already been terribly abused. When Ruth adopted her, she had cuts on her legs and went all the way down to the bone. Usually the horses Ruth used for therapy were at least 8 years old. Ruth said they needed that maturity to work with disabled kids, but Millie started working at Viscaramos right away. Ruth said Millie seemed to know she had been rescued because she acted grateful. When I got around Ruth, I just knew how Millie felt. As the abuse I was suffering continued, I came to see the riding center and Ruth herself as a safe haven. Ruth had thick reddish brown hair and a warm, sparkling brown eyes. And I admired how capable and self-assured she was. It seemed there was nothing in the barn she didn't know how to do. I told Ruth I'd work any job if she'd just let me hang around. I didn't dare tell her what was happening to me. My dad had said if I ever told a soul, he would kill my little brother and bury his body in the woods where no one would find him. So gross. Still, Ruth seemed to sense that I needed help because she kindly put me to work. First, she helped me sign up for 4-H, a year-round club whose members work together on a farm or in a stable. The idea was that if you give kids responsibilities and impress upon them how their actions make a difference in the lives of animals that they're tending, they will become more capable, confident, and self aware. Back then, I'm not sure I could have told you what the four H's stood for: heads, hearts, hands, and health. All I knew was that Ruth recommended 4 H and that joining would let me spend more time with her and less time at home, right? I had already learned from Alice how intuitive horses were, but Ruth expanded my knowledge. A horse can feel a fly land on its back, she'd say. Imagine all it can feel from you. And if you think it, the horse feels it. I already knew how to feed a horse, but now I learned about the different styles of riding and how to groom Alice properly. In the meantime, I must have mucked 1,000 stalls at Vaqueramos, shoveling soiled wood shavings and hay into my wheelbarrow with a pitchfork. It felt good to scrub something clean. Yikes, like how she got scrubbed clean. Oh, yes, they are not down. The price of meds. Yeah, I understand that, but I felt that way. But I've never been on H. Oh, Annabees. The yeah, the under the bridge downtown. No, I mean the price of meds. Yeah, they are definitely not down. Nothing has gone down, but gas is around too. He said that yesterday or the day before. Gas is down to about 2. Not only did he not know, what, like, dollars per gallon, but no, it's nowhere close to 2. It's like 3. And where I live is a lot cheaper than the rest of the country, I think. All right. I mean, Ohio, I think gas is a lot cheaper than places on the East Coast or the West Coast. And yeah. Um, anyway, where am I? And disabled clients. Every few months, Vincermos hosted camping trips for its members. Eager to get out of our house, I begged Mom to let me go along to Depoy State Reserve, a 22,000-acre park interspersed with ponds, wet prairies, and remnants of Everglade marsh. Officially, I went to help stake tents and tend animals, but I found I also connected with the kids who were blind or had cerebral palsy or other ailments. One girl, Maddie, was hearing impaired. Sitting around the campfire one night, I could tell she felt out of place, so I sat down next to her. We couldn't communicate really, but I made her smile by goofing around and toasting her marshmallows. Maddie didn't want to sleep in a tent, but her parents had a minivan. So we slept together there, rolling out our sleeping bags on the long, narrow back seats. Over a weekend, Maddie and I became wordless best buddies. That's cute. Kind of like me and Alice, Ruth praised me for sensing that Maddie needed a little extra TLC. But later I wondered if Maddie sensed the same about me. Aw, that's so cute. Though not disabled, I was definitely wounded and with no end to my abuse in sight. It was Ruth who first taught me that horses reflect the emotions of their riders. When working with her most vulnerable clients, children with autism, say, who had trouble identifying and communicating their feelings out loud, Ruth would often urge them to praise the horse on whose back they were sitting. Is your horse anxious? She'd ask. Do you think he feels like you? Later, she'd tell me that mirroring is just one superpower that horses have. Here's another one. As alert as they are to potential danger, horses don't carry fear with them all the time. Reminds me of a book I read back in the early 90s or mid 90s called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's a good one. It's about stress and what she's talking about. Um, as alert as they are to potential danger, horses don't carry fear with them all the time. Funny, too, because I read it around the same time that I read The Gift of Fear. Um, Once a mountain lion leaves their pasture, for example, horses will return immediately to grazing peacefully. Even in the wake of trauma, most horses are able to quickly embrace calm. Well, and it's almost, I've noticed this with people too. It's almost like they need to just kind of continue with whatever's routine as if nothing has happened, that there's something healing in that. It's also part of the denial, but it's like you just got to get your baseline back and just go with what you know. It's important, really important. I wish I could say the same about myself. At 10 years old, I saw my pre-adolescent body as an enemy. I couldn't control how it drew the attention of men who caused me pain. So I began to starve it. You don't deserve to eat, said a voice in my head. About the only thing I allowed myself to devour in those days was a videotape of Disney's Cinderella. Remember what I was saying yesterday about how I felt like the bottom really fell out for Ginny when the former prince abused her, because it was like the completely antithesis of what she had been studying her whole life, like this story of Cinderella, that was what, um, you know, made a girl's life better, but for her, it made it worse. Though I knew I was too old for it, I still found the animated classic comforting. I watched it so many times on our beat up VCR that Skydie, who usually liked to be plastered to my side, got bored and wandered off. Cinderella, you're as lovely as your name, the chorus sang, and as the opening credits rolled. And then Cinderella herself would appear, waking up in her bed, combing her fingers through her long blonde hair. A dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep, she'd sing to the birds and mice who gathered around her. And also to me, I related to the story of an unloved daughter doing chores with her family while her family mistreated her, and I enjoyed the fantasy of being swept off my feet by a handsome prince, no matter how sad I was, Cinderella sang. If I kept on believing my hopes for a better life would come true, still I couldn't help but wonder, was it really that simple? Um, if wishes were horses. Yeah, I should go let the pups in real quick, like I said, so they don't bug the neighbors barking. And it's about 2 hours. I'll try to go for another hour. One sec. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I let them back in. It's like freezing out there. If it was warmer, I could let them stay out, but not when it's that cold. Let's see. And the bees, my mom wouldn't let me join 4-H, Girl Scouts, or any church affiliated organizations. My mom knew instinctively that group stuff was dangerous. She did let me do school groups and Campfire Girl. Oh, that's wild. Well, and yeah, maybe she had her own experiences that she never shared or something. But yeah, just instinctively. Aw, my phone is showing me a very cute picture of my little puppy dog. It's doing a you know how it does those memory things? It's doing one of Mookie. There's Mookie, the one that you could hear in the background. Oh, she's so cute. Let's see. Sorry, those are so quick. There you go. Baby girl. Baby girl. She's a little wiener dog. Okay. She's only half Chewini, but she thinks she's all wiener dog. I was going to look at the temperature outside. It looks like it's above freezing. Yeah, it's just like 35 degrees. But when it's nice out, I'll leave them out for hours or even like prop the back door open so they can run in and out on their own accord. Come here, baby. Oh, little one is freezing. Come here. Come here, Mookie. Come here, baby. Come. Sit up here. Come on up. Come on up, boo. If you want, you don't have to. Let's see. I was going to make a little bed. Where was the, there was like a big old blanket that I had yesterday. Somebody took it. Oh, it got put into the wash. Here's another blanket I can get for them. Come here, babies. Come here. I bet you're freezing. Make a little bed on the floor at my feet. Okay. Because I'm a good temperature. I don't really need one. Oh, they're so cute. If wishes were horses. When I was 11, I got my period. For years as... This is chapter 6, page 43. For years as adults had forced me to do things no child should know about. I believe, do you believe this, Anna Bees, that this type of abuse can make make girls' periods start sooner, like it gets their hormones going? I believe that when girls are abused at a younger age, that they develop more quickly, which is sad because then they're going to be more attractive to more men and maybe be more vulnerable and get victimized more. I mean, men that are attracted to girls that are developed, some men are attracted to the prepubescent ones, right? So actually getting more developed would get them safer from those freaks. All right. I'd been praised sometimes for acting grown up, but no one had bothered to tell me what happened when a girl actually grows up. I had no idea what was coming. I remember being outside at one of my parents' boozy bonfire parties, running around with some other kids when I looked down at my jeans and saw a creeping red stain. Was I bleeding to death, I wondered? Pale and terrified, I sought out Mom, who glared at me as she appraised my bloody pants. Then, without putting down her beer, she headed into the house, scrounged around in a cupboard under the bathroom sink, and handed me a sanitary pad. Figure it out, she said, on her heel and leaving me alone. Locking the door behind her, I sat down on the toilet and cried. 11. Oh, poor baby. Around this time, so when she was 11, she would have been in 6th grade. Around this time, Sheila's mom called my mom. And what year would it have been? She was born in 83, so it would have been 1994. And what she said set off an explosion in our house. My memory is that mom got the impression that Forrest had impregnated Sheila. He hadn't, as it turned out. Sheila had recently told me that after a Florida court emancipated her, she moved to North Carolina with a boyfriend and got pregnant with him. She married that boyfriend when she was 18 and they had a daughter, but my mom didn't know that. My mom fought for hours that night with Skydie and I huddled together, covering our ears. For a while, Dad moved out, but not before I was exiled to the home of one of my dad's sisters. Aunt Carol lived in California, 3,000 miles west. Maybe my mother was trying to protect me when she sent me into this other galaxy, but it didn't feel that way to me. In my mind, my mother had once again chosen my father over me. A lone, listless breakfast table in an otherwise empty room, Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam would sing into the earphones. What's the name of that song? I know the song. I can't think of the name of it. The kid, Jeremy. Isn't that the name of the song? That's a really spooky song. Jeremy, Pearl Jam. Yeah, the lyrics. That is such a spooky song. What is the story behind the song Jeremy by Pearl Jam? It's about the real life suicide of a 15-year-old high school student, Jeremy Wade, who shot himself in front of his classmate in Richardson, Texas on January 8th, 1991. Lead singer Eddie Vedder was inspired to write the song after reading about the tragedy in a newspaper, which he combined with his own personal experiences of isolation. The song explores themes of alienation, bullying, and neglect, while the music video depicts a fictionalized version of the events. The real life event on January 8th, 1991, Jeremy Wade Dell, 15, returned. I didn't know this. I didn't know what I'm reading you. I just knew it was an awful story from the song. Returned to his English class after being sent out for being late and shot himself in front of his classmates. The incident shocked the community and is the foundation of the song. Eddie Vedder's inspiration. Vedder was deeply affected by the newspaper story and combined it with his own childhood experiences of feeling like an outsider. He drew these feelings to create a narrative that explores the themes of a troubled youth and the consequences of emotional silence. I want to keep reading the rest of the song's narrative and meaning and the impact and aftermath of the controversial music. The lyrics are a fictionalized account. It's pretty short. A fictionalized account of Jeremy's story, focusing on themes of abuse, isolation, and a feeling of being overlooked by those around him. The line Jeremy spoke in class today is a powerful, albeit tragic, metaphor for the moment when a silent, troubled individual finally forces the world to pay attention. The controversial music video, directed by Mark Pellington, brought the song to a wider audience, but also sparked controversy. While it depicts a fictionalized version of the event with symbolic imagery, the original version included a graphic scene of Jeremy putting a gun in his mouth that was censored by MTV at the time. impact and aftermath of the song's release and video's popularity coincided with a later copycat school shooting in 1996, where the perpetrator's attorneys argued the Jeremy video had influenced his actions. This event highlighted the sensitive nature of the song and its music video and led to public discussion about gun violence and its portrayal in the media. Wow, I'm glad I read that. I'm really glad I looked that up. But again, too, for education and fair use and, making it unique. Oh yeah, that song, Don't Call Me Daughter. When he'd belt out the chorus in which a young girl demands again and again, "Don't call me daughter," I'd chime in at the top of my lungs. Oh, I'm getting chills from that. When I arrived in Salinas, a dusty farming town just inland from Monterey, Salinas, I'm thinking of the Salinas. No, I'm thinking of Sausalito. Right. Okay, I know where Salinas is. It's like it's inland from Santa Cruz, which is just north of Monterey, just north of Carmel. And so Salinas is like between Santa Cruz and San Jose. And yeah, it is a dusty farming town. I was thinking of Sausalito. I'm like, what? Dusty farming town? Anyway, let's get going with this. When I arrived in Salinas, you guys know the song "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay" by Otis Redding, that was written sitting on the dock of the bay in Salinas. Sausalito, looking at San Francisco. Okay. And then he passed away 4 days later, I think, in a car crash. What a great song and what a sad story. When I arrived in Salinas, a dusting farming town just inland from Monterey, I was a skinny wreck. I couldn't have been less interested in starting at a new school. I wasn't a racist like my father, who'd told us that Black people are born with tails that doctors cut off when they were young. I knew that was BS and that I was no better than anyone else, no matter their skin color. But it was still hard to be one of only 3 white kids and the only white girl in a school that was ruled by Latino gangs. Yeah, I was going to bet that it was Latino, not Black, because I would think the same thing with San Jose. I may have been, or back then anyway, now it's probably full of white people because of the whole boon of, the techno bro scheme. I may have been seething inside, but on the outside, I wasn't very scary looking. With my emancipated frame and sunken blue eyes, when a classmate told me I had 2 choices, you can either be beat into a gang or effed into a gang, I had an idea. That afternoon, I convinced Aunt Carol to take me to get a haircut by threatening her with the truth. If you don't take me, I'll call Mom and tell her that you're spending all the money she sends you on things that are not for me. The minute I got into the salon chair, though, I told the beautician to shave my head. The poor woman was reluctant. My hair was almost to my waist. She was a smart girl, but I insisted. And it makes me think of Britney Spears. Maybe that's what Britney Spears was trying to do too. Get people to leave her alone. When I emerged with my buzz cut, my aunt was horrified, but my plan worked. The next day at school, I looked so crazy that even the gang stared clear. I love it. Though not raised religious, Aunt Carol had become a devout Mormon, and I had no use for her proselytizing. I don't know if I was able to get that out of my mouth correctly. With all that had happened, how could I believe that the Spirit of the Lord was trying to inspire me? I doubted my aunt knew what her brother had been doing to me. If she had known, she would have kept pleading with me to use the Book of Mormon. She wouldn't have kept pleading with me to use the Book of Mormon to bear my testimony. Still, her faith sounded like mumbo jumbo to me, and it wasn't long before I'd had enough of her. Remembering how Mom had run away to San Francisco as a teenager, I hatched a plan. If San Francisco was good enough for Mom, I figured maybe it'd be good enough for me. The night before Easter, how symbolic is that? The night before Easter, I crawled out a window and hitchhiked more than 100 miles north. Almost instantly, I regretted it, not knowing how cold San Francisco could be. I hadn't brought any warm clothes. Yeah, San Jose is hot. It's like the desert. And then San Francisco, totally different scene. A few days later, the cops nabbed me for panhandling, and Carol called my father and said she was done with me. That was that. My dad flew out and took me home to Florida. When I got back to Rackley Road, the first thing I did was run to Alice's empty stall. Where is she? I demanded. My parents said that when they'd shipped me off to California, they'd sold Alice. I cried for weeks, begging them to tell me where she was. Could I at least visit her? But neither Mom nor Dad would tell me Alice's whereabouts, saying only that she'd been sent to a good home. Well, that makes one of us, I thought to myself. At this point, for reasons I will never know, the sexual abuse stopped. Forrest was gone, and Dad was steering clear of me. I was relieved, of course. Well, the mom probably confronted him and threatened to turn him in to authorities or something like that, or to leave him, or both. I was relieved, of course, but I can't say that life became entirely easy either. What was left of my relationship with my parents was a river of anger that flowed in both directions. All this came to a head when Mom, Dad, Skydee, and I drove our camper van across country to a reunion of my dad's family near Sacramento. For the whole trip west, I stayed in the way back of the van, huddled under a blanket, headphones over my ears. At this point, I'd discovered Enya. Remember Enya? Whose new age sound, ethereal style felt foreign in a good way. I walked the maze of moments, but everywhere I turn to begins a new beginning, but never finds a finish. Enya sang in her lilting Irish accent. I know how she felt and sang along when she told me, sail away, sail away, sail away. When we arrived at the campsite where the family reunion was being held, I couldn't help but cheer up a bit. The massive redwoods were different from Florida's trees, and we sat around a campfire each evening. You know what? I was just thinking, you guys said I look like an angel with this thing. I'm thinking like I guess it's angels, but I was thinking more like the guides, like the spirit guides in the Bible. Because when I think of angels, I think of like cherubs. I think of like little kids, and then the older, full grown women angels. That's what I look like, right? Like the saints. Let's see. I think I look more like a saint than an angel. What do you think? They are okay with California and Sacramento. I'm not sure what that means, Annabees. Okay. Um, the The trees, they're okay with California. Oh, and sexual abuse. I'm not sure if that's what you mean by essay. Um, the massive redwoods were different from Florida's trees, and we sat around a campfire each evening. I liked staring up at the stars. Then one night, toward the end of the 4-day gathering, there was a dance that was open to all campers, not just our family group. I went, grateful to be around kids my own age, but also to be in a place where no one knew a thing about me. For a few hours, I pretended I was a carefree camper from a wonderful, loving home. That's cute. And after the DJ played the night's final song, a shy boy whom I danced with once or twice offered to walk me back to our campsite. Gratefully, I accepted. My mom always said that my sense of direction was so poor that I could get lost in a circle. And on this night, I knew I needed help finding my way. But minutes later, as the boy and I walked down the middle of a moonlit asphalt road, Dad's van suddenly appeared and screeched to a halt. "What the F are you doing?" my father screamed from the driver's seat, and I could tell from the high keen of his voice that he was drunk. My gracious escort looked as if he might swallow his tongue. "I'm sorry, sir," he stammered. "I didn't do anything. I'm just walking Jenna home." But my dad wasn't listening. "Get the F out of here," Dad ordered, stepping toward the boy. Then he turned on me. "You're an effing slut," he said, and he threw me into the van. Back at our campsite, Dad kept up with his yelling, calling me a dirty whore, an ungrateful piece of crap, and worse. I'd heard it all before, but then I snapped. "What? You think you're the only one who's allowed to touch me?" I asked, my voice loud. My mom was inside the camper, out of earshot. This is a crazy, sad part of this story. Let me shift my weight around. This is a stunning part of the story. To me, this was like pivotal. "And let me get Mookie. Come here, baby." Oh, oh. Two of the babies are on the blanket at my feet. I thought she might bite me for moving her, but I wonder if I have another blanket nearby that I can grab for her. Oh, come here, baby. I think there's like a little baby blanket up there. There's like a little pillowcase I can put on her that's all fuzzy, and then she'll stay. Here, here. It's got a cute design on it too. Aw, she's staying put. How sweet. And where's the other one? Is the other one over here? The little fuzzy monster? Let's see, where was I? The sad, sad part. Um, yes, I didn't write that about Mormons. They are okay with CA and SA. They were okay with the abuse, the Mormons. But what didn't you write, Anna? Did you not write they are okay with CA and SA? Was that like the ghost in the machine writing that for you? Oh, that thing. I didn't write that. Message redacted. That's okay. But that would be wild if there was a ghost in the machine, if there was like like it was Virginia, right? What if? That would be freaking wild. That would be pretty cool, actually. Where was I? Oh, okay, are you ready? Trigger warning. This is so effing crazy. Not so much this, but after this. My mom was inside the camper, out of earshot. But if I was going to fully call Dad out, I wanted to make sure At least my uncles and aunts could hear. This guy has been effing me for years. Since I was a little kid, I yelled in their direction, and no one's done crap about it. I wish I could say that they all stood up then to form a protective barrier around me, but they didn't move. So, after a startled silence, Dad grabbed me by the neck and with one hand and punched me in the face with the other. Then he shoved me into the borrowed camper where we'd all been sleeping and continued beating me until my lips were split open and one of my eyes was swollen shut. Skydee tried to come in to help me, but he was too little to do much. So sad. Finally, I got Dad off me by kicking him in the groin, and the beating stopped. He'd worn himself out, raging at me. The next morning, I woke up thinking that since I'd finally revealed my father's abuse out loud, something would have to change. Maybe, at the very least, someone would acknowledge what I'd been through. Instead, before we left to drive back to Florida, the entire extended family acted as if nothing had happened. You want some bacon and eggs, Aunt Peggy? Not actually my aunt, but a family friend. We'd been told to call her that. Asked me when I emerged, black and blue, from wherever I'd passed out. She offered me some Percocet. Then my family plied in our van, and I sought out my blanket in the back. I didn't speak to my father again until we got to Loxahatchee. Weeks later, I started at Crestwood Middle School. I was 13. Maybe this will be hard to understand. Okay, she was 13, right? Trying to keep track of time and ages. But for a while, I stopped fighting. It was as if my anger were a balloon, but all the air had leaked out. I'd lived on the streets of San Francisco, surviving gang pangs of hunger that even I, a girl who'd become expert in denying myself nourishment, found excruciating. I guess part of me was just glad to be living under a familiar roof again. It was around this time that I came home and found Forrest sitting with Dad on our back porch. Uncle Forrest has something he wants to say to you, Dad said as a bump of adrenaline hit me. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. He's a man of God now, born again, Dad continued, and it's important that you respect your elders and hear him out. I don't know what I expected to hear from Forrest's ugly mouth. Maybe I'm sorry I graped you and effed up your life. Besides, my legs weren't working, so I just stood there trying to breathe. What happened next would be funny if it weren't so appalling. Forrest stood up and grabbed me by my shoulders, then pushed me to my knees, where he'd forced me to be so many times before. This time, though, he was clothed. You need to ask God for forgiveness, he said, sort of bellowing, for what you did with your dad and me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. As horrible as I felt about myself, some part of me knew that what happened with Dad and his friend wasn't all my fault. But standing over me now, Forrest just kept on half yelling, half preaching. Suddenly, I knew what hate tasted like. It was bile in my mouth, bitter, and I had an appetite for it. I hated Forrest. I hated my parents. I hated every living being in Loxahatchee. After that, my rage stayed at a full boil. I ran away so often. My parents put alarms on my windows to try to keep me in, but I'd watched MacGyver and I always got out. That's funny, huh? Um, oh no, I forgot I wrote it. Okay. Anna Bees, you're so funny. Thanks again for being here, my dear. and the others who are here that aren't in the chat. And thank you, everybody on the replay crew, too. I think it's really important to know this story. So I still want to encourage everybody to read the book so that they can go over it. You know, parts that strike you that you want to go back to, that kind of thing. Like, I'm really looking for the part when she mentions that she found out that her dad had accepted money from little E. I've tried finding that, but that was one of the reasons why I wanted to just reread the whole thing, because I couldn't find it. I've looked so many times. Because it's probably just a key few words. It's just like one sentence. And I just have skipped over it. I think it's about halfway through, but we'll find out. So, where was I? I hated Forrest. I hated my parents. I hated every living being in Loxahatchee. After that, my rage stayed at a full boil. I ran away so often. My parents put alarms on my windows to try to keep me in. Oh, I read that part, but I watched MacGyver and I always got out. Though I went to school each day, I skipped more classes than I attended, while whiling away the hours under the bleachers smoking pot. English class was the exception. I never cut English because I loved reading and escaping into other people's stories. But one compelling class wasn't enough to tether me to school. Though I was on the basketball team, I stopped going to practice. For years, my parents, who'd attended every one of Sky's games and tournaments, had always skipped mine. I was done trying to win them over. My middle school shared a campus with the high school, so now I sought out older kids, the bad kids, the rats who did drugs and got in trouble. There was one boy, Ian, whom I'd met in the woods to smoke pot and fool around with. I think he was a senior in high school while I wasn't yet a freshman. But I told myself this was proof I was just more grown up than my peers. Up to that point, all sexual encounters had been against my will. So there was something freeing about choosing that for myself. That said, Ian wasn't anything close to a boyfriend or first love. At the same time, I thought I was taking back control of my life by laying down in the woods with him. But I see something else now. Pathetically, I was trading the only part of me that anyone seemed to care about, my body, while my soul remained on the sidelines, ignored. I know this is a lot to take in: the violence, the neglect, the bad decisions, the self-harm. Imagine if a trauma reel like this played in your head all the time, as it does in mine, and not just on the pages of a book you can put down if you need to, just for a moment to steady your nerves. But please don't stop reading. I know exactly how to help you get through these tough parts, just as I help myself by focusing on the present. It's dinner time in the Gouffre household, and Robbie has made his famous shepherd's pie. Alex, Tyler, Ellie, he yells from the kitchen, making their names into one word. Suddenly, the kids are running full steam toward the table. Shotgun, Tyler says, but because he's the first to claim it. He gets the coveted chair right next. He gets the coveted chair to the right of Robbie, who sits at the head of the table. The shotgun seat is the only one with a direct line of sight to the living room TV, catty corner from our dining area, and the TV isn't usually on when we're eating, but a family tradition has been cemented nonetheless. The best seat at the dinner table is that one, and every night the kids compete for it. A few For a few minutes, everyone chews, everyone except Alex, who's half asleep. Eat your dinner, Alex. It's funny because I'm thinking the name Alex is a lot like Alice, her horse, but it's one of her sons. All right. Eat your dinner, Alex, Robbie commands. I'm trying, our oldest protests. Your hands are in the pockets of your hoodie, Robbie observes. That's not the definition of trying. Robbie worries that Alex is too skinny. You look like a stick figure, he says, but I remember how thin I was as a teenager, and I've seen photos of Robbie as a beanstalk at that age, too. I reach over and put my hand on Robbie's knee to signal, let him be. Hey, Dad, what is the most intelligent species on the planet? Ellie asks. You're looking at him, Robbie boasts as Ellie rolls her eyes. But here's what occurs to me all the time. Robbie may not be highly educated, but he has taught me and the kids so much. Our children are polite. They take the trash, they take out the trash bins when asked. They're kind to one another. When Ellie was cold at the beach the other day, Tyler offered her his sweatshirt without anyone asking. Well, I'd love to take credit. I know Robbie is a big part of the reason why. Our kids know something I never knew as a child, that their father would do anything to keep them safe. And that allows them to thrive. How you doing, bestie? He'll ask Ellie when she looks out of sorts. My husband is difficult to ignore. He gets her talking, and when any of us is truly in a funk, it is Robbie who suggests that we drop anchor. Envision yourself on a boat, he says. Now throw that weight overboard. What are you really feeling? Let's stop, get centered, see what's going on. When we lash out or act angry, it is Robbie, no stranger to anger himself, who pushes us to look for what he knows is there, the underlying hurt. I've got plenty of that. Full disclosure, though, when dropping anchor doesn't work, Robbie's been known to drop his pants and moon us, anything to get through to us, to get us out of our own heads. That's my husband, part guru, part goofball. He helps me more than I can say. At 13, I could walk a mile for a fist fight. I particularly liked confronting bullies, which is probably part of the reason I befriended a boy named Jose. He didn't call himself gay because that wasn't a word we used then, but he liked boys that way, and he refused to hide it. So he was always getting picked on. I was Jose's only friend. We used to do each other's makeup, and the fact that he made no sexual demands on me was a relief. Wearing brightly colored outfits and heavy eyeliner to school, Jose seemed intent on forcing our school's bigots to accept him for who he was. I wanted his plan to work. When it didn't, though, one insulting word aimed in Jose's direction was enough for me to throw the first punch. When he took me home and his mom heard how I was defending him, she told me I was welcome there anytime. Soon I was regularly sleeping on their couch, but then my mother called the cops looking for me, and two officers knocked on Jose's front door. I hid, but after they left, Jose's mom told me I needed to sleep elsewhere. I was on the move again. Um, I feel like throwing up. It is so vile. Thank you, Jazz. It is difficult, but we have to. I know. And that part on the last couple of pages where she stops and says, I know this is a lot to take in, the violence and the neglect, the bad decisions. Um, I think that's cool how she addresses that. And it's such a good point because it is just kind of getting to that point that it's too much. Um, so where was I? Um, then I met a fellow middle schooler boy named Tony Figueroa, who would play a big part in my life off and on for years to come. Tony's mom was from Honduras and his dad was from Chile. And he had the most beautiful long black hair. A self proclaimed goth with combat boots and all black clothing. Tony could spend hours listening to Led Zeppelin and Metallica. Oh, I didn't know that Led Zeppelin and Metallica were goth. I guess I didn't know what goth music was. I love Zeppelin. I've never been into Metallica. And it makes me think of Chris Watts. He was a big Metallica head. I like to say lead head. Get the lead out. Okay, I thought he was rad. Tony had black lights in his bedroom. Oh, and remember the Led Zeppelin soundtrack from Sharp Objects? Did you watch that, Anna Bees? You did, didn't you? The mini series that Amy Adams produced and starred in, that I was just like so caught up in a few months ago when I discovered it. The whole movie is Led Zeppelin soundtrack. It's phenomenal. Or not movie, but the series. I like both those bands. They are not goth. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Yes, I loved it. The series was so good. I know. I think I watched the whole thing twice, and I was going to watch it a third time, but it was not a priority. So someday, when like if my sister wants to watch it with me or something, or someone. I think I watched it all by myself, and I watched it all with my 23-year-old daughter. I think I've watched it 3 times. Yeah, it is so freaking good, but especially the soundtrack. It's just very well done. And didn't it give you a lot of insight into like Kylie Rodney's case? Sharp Objects? Seriously. Seriously. Okay. Where was I? Always thinking about Kylie Rodney's case. Man, I wish she'd get some justice. Just a sliver of justice to start with, just something. Let me get another drink. Choking on my coffee. I did jazz Sammy as a psycho. Right. And then her family being the richest family in town. So everybody does what she says, just like in the movie. Or in the mini series. Wasn't it a Hulu mini series, or did it start on HBO Max and then get sold to Hulu or something? Okay, done with the coffee, onto the water. One sec. Because I still got that tickle in my throat. Don't you hate that? Okay. All right, here we go. I'm right here. At least I didn't lose my spot. I thought he was rad. Tony had black lights in his bedroom that made his neon colored posters glow in the dark. He also had a lock on his door, so when his mom would knock, I had time to slip under the bed before he opened it up. On nights when I didn't want to go home, that was most nights, Tony would bring me scraps from his family's dinner table, like in the movie E.T., the extraterrestrial, when the little boy sneaks food to the alien hiding in his closet. I was truly fond of Tony, but this relationship, like so many others, was colored by my desperation. At first, we were just friends, but I felt I owed Tony for letting me stay with him. And at this point, I saw sex as a primary way to pay my debts. One night we were in his room and rain was pouring down outside. Tony put the Doors Riders on the Storm on his stereo and we ended up having sex. I was probably 14. I'd find out later that it had been his first time. So sad. I was barely sleeping at my parents' house, but I guess they wanted me gone for good because this is when mom tricked me into entering growing together. I've already described the terrors I endured at that teen rehab facility. But she could have been 13 because she says I was probably 14 and she probably knows how old she was. Or she just doesn't want to say 13 because she's trying to muddy the water. But I know that 13 is the youngest age that they take at growing together. So I'm going to bet you that her mom got her into that place as soon as she could. She probably tried getting her there when she was 12, but had to wait till she turned 13. Just my opinion. Um, exactly. I'm not sure. I saw it on Max. Oh, yeah, HBO Max. Yeah. For anybody who hasn't seen it yet and doesn't know what we're talking about, Sharp Objects is a phenomenal miniseries. Starring and produced by Amy Adams. So, Sharp Objects, Where to Watch. It's available on HBO Max and Hulu and YouTube Premiere subscription, Sling TV, Amazon Prime, and Fandango. It's just for anyone who's interested. It's one season, isn't it? Like 4 episodes? No, eight episodes. I'm glad I looked. I didn't realize it was 8 episodes. So it was July 8th to August 26th, 2018 when it first dropped. So 8 years ago, if I can do math. I agree, Jez. I know, Anna Bees, you and I agree on most everything, but it's okay when we don't, right? It's more than okay when we don't. Um, let's see. Mom tricked me into entering growing together. I've already described the terrors I endured at that teen rehab facility. I've told of my escape to Miami when I was 15. See, I don't think she went there for 2 years. She was feisty. She ran away right away. She ran away as soon as she got there. Again, she's trying to um, make herself older so that she's not ratting out the criminals to as bad of crimes as it is if she was 13 rather than 16 when Jiz and Little E um, held her hostage, basically, took advantage of her. Let's see, abused her. But let's just go with that. Okay, I've told of my escape to Miami when I was 15 and what that armed stranger in the van did to me when I accepted a ride home from him. But remember, in the Billionaires Playboy Club, that starts with her getting quote unquote rescued by Ron Eppinger in the parking lot when she was 13, which is right the same day that this guy assaulted her and put the gun in her mouth. So she was 13. Um, I'm sure of it. So here we go. But that's how she tries to slide the years up. It's like right there with that. If you hadn't read the Billionaires Playboy Club, you would have no idea. You would just go with it and go, oh, okay, 15, got it. But yeah, when that stranger in the white van, what that stranger in the white van did to me when I accepted a ride from him, I've tried to explain how that grape made me easy prey for the old fat man in the black limousine, Ron Eppinger, who was then 63, 50 years older than her. Oh my goodness. What I didn't know when Eppinger picked me up in his limo in December of 1998, and again, she was born in August of 83. So if this was December of 98, she would have been 15. But if this was December of 96, she would have been 13, which is what it was. So it was 1996. I want to get my highlighter out maybe, and but I don't know that I want to highlight the book. Do I? Or just grab my pen, because this is where the timeline, I'm just going to write a note to self. This is where timeline is skewed. Skewed by 2 years. So it was not 1998, it was 1996 when Eppinger picked her up and started transporting her. Okay. Perfect 10, the modeling agency he told me he was running was in fact $1,000 a night escort service. I thought it was $1,000 an hour, probably depending on the client and the hostage, right? The victim, the survivor. Federal prosecutors would eventually prove that between 1997 and 1999, Eppinger and two Czech accomplices procured young women abroad, then sent them to South Florida to work as call girls. So when Eppinger discovered me sitting on that curb and took me home, he made an exception. I was the only American girl in his stable. So I want to see what Google says about Ron Eppinger. What years did Ron Eppinger run a Perfect 10 modeling agency in Miami, Florida? See what AI says about that. So it just says late 1990s. And then it says that they did specify in prosecution a time frame from 97 to 99. So late 90s and early 2000s. Okay. Eppinger wanted me to look as young as possible. So the first night I was there, before he demanded sex from me, he shaved my pubic area and told me to keep it that way. He said I should be grateful when he forced me to have intercourse with him. Sorry, trigger warning. Because he was teaching me a valuable skill, how to please men. Later, he required that I watch porn so I'd understand what sex is about. He had a certain all-American look he wanted me to emulate. He insisted I have my blonde hair dyed a lighter platinum, like a teen Barbie doll, and sent me to a tanning salon to bronze my skin. He also liked to show me off in public, driving me around in his convertible. During these drives, he usually required that I be topless. Early on, Eppinger was relatively gentle with me, but as time went by, he revealed a violent streak. He was aggressive with me during sex and seemed to enjoy making me feel afraid. Oh, little E loved the fear that he provoked in his victims. I agree, Jazz. It is definitely okay. One of us is probably right. LOL. It's your book. You can do it. I know. I didn't really want to write in it. That's the first time I've written in it. I've come close a few times. I haven't used my highlighter in it yet either. Because yeah, but I actually like my own notes in a book. I just don't like somebody else's notes in a book because you don't know what they're talking about. It doesn't make any sense. Um, oh. On one particularly awful night, he grabbed me by the back of my neck and, trigger warning, forced my face into his crotch. I closed my eyes and began to count 1, 2, 3, hoping the numbers would keep my brain from focusing on what was happening. I tried to count to over 100 before he ejaculated, trigger warning, in my mouth. Graped again and again, I began to take the rugs Eppinger and his girls offered me. Xanax, oxycodone, anything to numb the pain. Determined to change my fate one way or another, I began fantasizing about offing myself. It would be so much easier if you just died, said the voice in my head. In some published accounts about this period in my life, I've been inaccurately described as an eager participant in Eppinger's world. In her book, Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein story, the Miami Herald's Julie K. Brown writes that after I heard from Eppinger's other girls about the expensive clothes and jewelry that their clients gave them, I began to think that this lifestyle wasn't only exciting, it was an acceptable way to earn a living. What a bitch. Julie K. Brown. I don't even remember reading that before, but I've heard her in interviews say some stupid shit, which is sad because she's also a wealth of information and she did a lot actually to help Virginia and her case. But what a effing psycho whore. Come on. Horrible. What a effing monster. But sometimes you got to wonder, like, did people get to her? Was she forced to say stuff like that? Or is she just that horrible of a person? Because I'm going to bet that people got to her and made her say stuff like that. That's bunked. I wasn't excited. I was defeated. I was a defeated, hopeless child. I knew what was happening wasn't right. Soon after Eppinger began transferring, transporting me to his friends, I knew how it felt to be a puppy picked from a litter, just hoping its new owner wasn't the whipping kind. I was merely trying to survive. The only bright spot in this dark chapter came when Eppinger, sensing that law enforcement was onto him, sent me away to a horse ranch in Osala in northern Florida. While there, I was made to service the owner of the ranch, who was repulsive. But being near horses again helped me stay in touch with myself. While I didn't get to groom or ride them, I could watch them from afar, standing together, tossing their tails and grazing happily. I imagined these animals were my guardian angels. Have you ever heard that nursery rhyme? If wishes were horses, beggars would ride. It means that success in life depends not just on how much you desire it, but on what actions you take to achieve it. I like that idea that a person has the power to push her own life forward. But when I was held prisoner by Eppinger, I didn't have any power. I felt if I took action to save myself, I'd be caught and physically punished, or worse. In the years since, I've come to believe that in Osala, my wishes really were horses. The horses outside my window embodied the freedom I lacked, the freedom I wished for. Watching them lazily munching sweet grass, even as they trained their ears to perceive any threats, the only time I dared imagine that my life might someday get better. Eppinger held me captive for nearly 6 months before he gave me away to his friend. Am I sinking? Am I growing roots out of my rear end into the cushion? Yes, you read that right. He gave me away as if I were a used bicycle or an unloved toy. The man Eppinger gifted me to was in his 50s and had connections to Fort Lauderdale's seedy nightclub scene. I think that he sold her. I think she's revised that. In the first story, it was sold, and it wouldn't make sense that he would give her away, but unless it was like an old debt or something. Every night, or maybe he lost her in a gambling, like in a poker game or something. Seriously, you know how freaks are like that, right? I wonder if by naming these places, these people have been busted further too. Ah, oh well. Something fell. It was one of my lights. I don't know if you can tell the difference. I might be able to grab it. Well, there's my highlighter. Oh, see, this is why I hate gravity so much. It's so stupid. That's where my highlighter went. I was like, where did it go? And so when the gravity got my light, then I found my cool highlighter. I love this thing. Okay, where's it from? It's from Jewish Family Services. Isn't that funny? So, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and highlight that part where I wrote in because it'll help me find it if I'm looking for it.